What's going on, everybody? So I promised you a personal video about 4 months ago. It was when I announced that I was directing a film.
Mm-hmm.
And I said I was going to do 3 videos, the announcement about the film, and then a video about the future of the channel, and then a personal video, just sort of like an announcement. And I'm sorry it took so long. I'm sure you'll understand why in a few moments. So some of you may have guessed what the announcement is, but I highly doubt that you guessed exactly what the announcement is because it's extremely specific and it's not something that I really would have guessed either for my life. So just to say, you know what? Why don't you just say it? Because you did all the work.
I did do all the work. Yes, I have developed a human inside of me. We're now officially parents.
Yes, we are officially parents. Now, I'm not going to be one of those dads that shares a lot of photos of their kid, at least in a public way. You know, I will with my friends, but we've kind of agreed to show at least one photo. So here's a photo of our children. So yeah, we have twins.
Yeah. We got double blessed.
So the day that I made the video announcing that I was directing a film, I kid you not, the next day they were born. The next day.
Yeah.
So every video since then has been shot over at my office, and we've had to like shuffle our lives around and take shifts, and we've had great people helping us too. But like, that's why this video took so long to make, because originally I was going to shoot all 3 of them that week, but then they came
a week early.
Yeah,
actually,
which actually isn't bad at all.
No, honestly, I mean, considering all the complications I had getting to that point,
yeah,
the fact that I made it to 37 weeks is pretty good.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
for twins, that's incredible.
It was just really funny as all of our friends were rooting for my original C-section date, which was like 7/14/21.
Because it's like 7 plus 14 equals 21 or whatever. Our friends are very OCD apparently. It's weird because I don't think of myself as a parent. It's one of those strange things because I am, but I don't. Do you ever like accomplish something in life, and then other people start saying like a title for you? Like when you turn 18, you're legally an adult, but like you don't really feel like an adult. It's just you turned 18. When I became a father, people are like, "How do you feel about being a parent?" I was like, "Oh fuck, I don't know what that means." That's strange to me. I love them.
Mm-hmm.
They're adorable, and just they're giggling now. They're laughing. They're making faces. They're communicating, and I genuinely could not even begin to imagine doing this without your help and the help of other people who've been around to assist us. So because it's challenging. It is challenging. It's not like a fairy tale or something. It's difficult.
Yeah,
but we're doing it.
Yeah, I think what added to the complication was because our jobs are unconventional and we work from home and work for ourselves. It wasn't like we could request off maternity leave or paternity leave to stop our jobs and stop working. And so it was kind of like jumping back in after coming from the hospital, like a couple of days of just doing nothing but obviously adjusting, and it was like right back to the grind pretty quickly after having them, because
it's like you can't stop. On this platform, it's you don't make a video for a month and it's like you died or something.
We'd be getting flooded with messages from people being like, "Did Chris Stuckmann die?" And
you have to keep going.
So you do. So it was kind of like adapting right there at the beginning. So that first month of July, I think you do have a slight lag in content.
For sure. No, there was no way that the fact that I made, what was it, like 10 videos on the Halloween that was a fucking miracle. Along with having 2 twin boys, we also have 2 boy dogs, and so
I am so outnumbered in this house. It's not even funny. It's literally 5-1.
Well, it's all revenge because as a kid I had 2 sisters and I had no brothers. So now it's like karma's coming back for me, where I'm around men now.
Which is, I guess if you think about that way, it's like I had a sister as well. So it was time for some men.
That's what I like to say.
Yeah,
time for some men. Whatever you see in movies, like when a newborn baby comes out laughing, that's bullshit. It's all fucking bullshit. If you saw my review of Curse of Michael Myers, I had a whole segment where I talked about how crazy it is that the newborn baby was left in a bathroom for 24 hours and nobody heard it crying, because I've been through that now. And I know that a newborn child, it wants to be fed like every 1 to 2 hours maybe, and we'll let you know. And so the fact that those, from now on when I watch movies, I am going to be like hyper aware of like baby inaccuracies.
Kid inaccuracies in general.
Yes.
It's really nice when you walk into a room and they instantly smile when they see you, and you know they're actually like acknowledging the fact that you exist and not just, oh hey, there's that thing that puts food in my mouth. No, they're actually genuinely happy to see you, and it's really fun.
Their favorite word right now is "agu."
Agu.
Whatever that means.
Agu.
Their special thing that they say.
Yeah.
They say it a lot when we're looking at them.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's like their person I know thing. But,
yeah.
You know, it's very adorable.
Especially if it's like, I love you. They'll start to go, I love you.
Yeah, they don't say it like, it's kind of just, they kind of hit the syllables.
Yeah,
they kind of go like, or something.
Yeah,
like
it's
they
like they're trying to mimic the wave of the I love you.
Right.
It's really sweet, and you're trying to find any of those sweet moments when you're sleep deprived to be like, this makes me feel happy and feel accomplished, like I'm doing something right. I really feel like I need to go pass out in a corner right now and sleep for 20 hours. Good night.
So their names are Fox and Grayson. We thought a lot about this. No, those names are not based off of any media or characters from movies or television shows. We are well aware there are people with those names in movies and media. It's incredibly hard to name somebody who hasn't been named in a movie. Yeah. Those are just names we like.
Originally, it was supposed to be Fox Grayson when we had a list of like names for one child, and then turn around and it ended up being two. And we honestly had a very short list of names we liked that we felt comfortable with, and so we're like, well, I think we're just gonna split Fox Grayson up and do it Fox and Grayson, and then gave them different middle names because we could not come to an agreement on first names.
I was this close to being like, you're unnamed, you figure it out.
Figure it out for yourself later on in life.
Boy 1, boy 2, figure out your names later, it's on you, I can't do it.
There was like a board in our kitchen where we just kept writing names and different combinations
it's incredibly
of
difficult.
Names.
Okay, like when I write a screenplay, I stare at that screen for hours trying to name my characters. Try naming a child. It's like when you have that level of like importance. Like,
but the reason we said that is because my name is Samantha and his name is Chris, which during our generation happened to be some of the most prevalent and popular names you could give a child.
What are you talking about? I'm the only guy named Chris on the planet.
Yeah. Yeah. There were literally so many Samanthas in my class. We had 3 of them in my classroom. That's not including my entire grade, because there were so many more in my grade. We had 3 in my classroom of 30. And then it was like a bunch of Ashleys and Sarahs and all the typical like 90s names that you heard everywhere. So that was fun. Brian. Yeah, there was a lot of Brians.
Paul. And just so you know, like, we're filming this at home. We have a friend who's watching the kids right now, so you may or may not occasionally hear them stir upstairs. I film my regular videos over at my office, so to alleviate that potential issue. But for Sam to be in the video with me, it kind of just helps to film this at home right now. Yeah. I think that one of the things we also wanted to get into really is just like how this all came about, which is deeply personal, and so please be incredibly respectful of my wife, especially because, you know, when I talked about my past, you guys were great, and I would appreciate if you did the same thing for her. Let's talk about how this all came to be, and what, you know, we went through, and especially you went through to achieve this.
So as Chris was saying, this is slightly a deeply personal matter for me specifically. We struggled with infertility for a number of years. It's been a while since we started to try actively for kids. That was pretty disheartening for me, and I know it got eventually very tiresome on Chris as well, because I was obviously not in a great place emotionally when everything was failing. It just felt like I was a failure and everything was going wrong. And then eventually, obviously, you go to the doctor and you're like, okay, well, why is this not happening? This should happen. And then you start having to do testing, and so much testing, so many possibilities, and they look at a lot of things. Eventually we came down to, I have polycystic ovarian syndrome, PCOS, and I have insulin resistance, and I had a couple other things. I have issues with polyps that develop, and I have like weird hormone levels. So it was like a list of things that just kind of were working against us being able to conceive. And then it took a lot of like regulating and trial and error to get like to a place where my body was functioning. And of course, it functioned for about 4 months, and then everything went off the rails. So July of 2019, I started to work with a fertility doctor. Around that time, I started to kind of also feel kind of sick. I had only been kind of normal for a few months at that point, so I was like, what the hell's going on? Why am I now back to what felt like square one? So working with a fertility doctor, I had scans done, and there were masses inside of my uterus at that point. And so I had to go do more testing. Fast forward to September of that year, I started bleeding profusely, having to take a lot of painkillers all the time, and just was very uncomfortable, was not feeling well, and was getting very sickly a lot. And that was a lot on my body and my mind. And of course, you're trying to work with a fertility doctor, and your health insurance is now throwing curveballs at you because you had started fertility stuff, and now you're having issues with fertility related body part. They're like being like, well, we're not going to sign off on this test because it's potentially related to infertility, when in all actuality it wasn't. It was because I was having a hard time.
Yeah, that was some bullshit.
Yeah, that was not fun. Eventually I had to go through another doctor to get some of my testing done. I just added more time to everything, more stress to everything. So from September 2019 to March 2020, I basically was pretty constantly bleeding, pretty much in pain all the time. It was hard to function. I kind of just got through my days like focusing on like everything else besides the pain I was in, and trying to fight with my insurance company and get everything worked out and try to figure out what was going on. Fast forward to March 2020, I get to have surgery to remove these masses from my uterus. Thankfully, they were all just benign polyps, but they were very hardened, and they were very large, and there was 6 of them inside. So it was basically just like the entire uterus was full of polyps at that point. And then obviously, as everybody knows, March 2020, I kid you not, I had my surgery like March 15th, and we went into lockdown 7 days later when I was still recovering, and I still had another 2 weeks after that of recovery time from the surgery before the doctors would consider like looking at me again for further progression of our fertility treatment. Then the world, like I said, the world shut down a week later, and my doctor's appointments I had scheduled for April for our fertility stuff kind of got like pushed back because, well, they were trying to focus on people who were already actively into their treatments and cycles and had very time sensitive things going on, which anybody who's been through IVF will know it's very time sensitive in a lot of steps. Like everything is down to like hours of time that you have to do them in. So we kept getting bumped because everything was still being closed, and so we didn't actually get to start the fertility stuff again until the July, when I finally got to go back to the fertility doctor to start getting on medication and regulating everything. And of course, at that point, because it had been so long since my surgery, we now had to do more scans and more testing to make sure no more polyps had developed. So that was fun and uncomfortable because that test that was painful.
Yuck. That's my contribution.
Yeah. So finally got to start on the IVF stuff. Obviously spent an obscene amount of money to do it. It took us a few years to save up to do it, even because it's a lot of money up front. It's not like you can finance it really. I mean, you can to some extent finance it by putting part of it on a credit card or getting a loan, but most of the IVF places I called were all like, yeah, we want the money up front.
It's like when you're trying to get a new apartment and they're like, we want 48 months rent up front.
Yeah.
What? That's a lot of fucking money.
Yeah.
But of course, I guess it is a very expensive and detailed procedure, obviously, that needs a lot of care.
Yeah, and
they want to make sure you're going to go through with it.
Yeah, but honestly, our clinic was one of the lower priced ones in the area, actually. There were some that were for much more extreme cases than our issues were. So I can't imagine like how expensive some of those ones are.
Yeah.
So obviously you get started on the journey with IVF. There's a lot of medication, timing, and then you start what's called egg retrieval, where you start taking medication to develop multiple egg sacs around your ovaries. And then eventually they go in and retrieve them, and you're put under general anesthesia when they do this. And then they obviously fertilize the collected eggs that day, and then for us, we got them genetically tested to make sure that we were only transferring what was perceived to be good quality embryos. Clearly,
well, that sure fucking worked.
Yeah, it clearly worked.
I got two motherfuckers out of that thing.
Yeah,
they just popped right out.
Yeah, they basically split.
Strong men.
Yes. I literally told them to pick the strongest embryo to transfer.
They fucking did.
And they did, and because it clearly was so strong, it had to split.
They did.
So you go through the whole thing, and then I did my egg retrieval actually on our anniversary. That was a great anniversary gift. Let's go have surgery.
Sexy time.
Oh my god. And then, of course, I get some complications after the egg retrieval where I had like too much fluid in my abdomen and around my uterus, and I was bloating too much, and it was really painful. Actually, it was actually worse than some of the pain I'd ever had in my life. I looked like I had like a football under my skin. Thankfully, I had time to recover because we had chosen to do the genetic testing route. I was not doing a fresh transfer. I was doing a frozen transfer. So I actually had a window of time after that to recover from the egg retrieval instead of trying to do a transfer doing a transfer 5 days later, because honestly, with how I was feeling 5 days, I probably would not have had a successful transfer at that point. That would have been really bad. And then I would have been devastated emotionally. It's a whole thing. So eventually, obviously doing a frozen transfer, I had a bit of a window through the month of October where I was finally feeling like a human again. It was great. I got to spend all of October doing actual human-like activities, and I got to go to like nothing because we were still in the middle of quarantine. So my 1 month chance to do anything, like go on a roller coaster and go drink with friends or go to a hayride or anything fun that I love to do every Halloween, completely kiboshed by COVID.
Yeah, it sucked. It was a weird time, because like we were all, I think most people were kind of figuring out like what jobs meant, what life meant and everything. And we were trying to figure all that out too, plus this extra thing, this very important thing. And it was I wouldn't say the word, I guess stressful is the right word, but it wasn't stressful so much as it was confusing. It was like, what are we supposed to do right now? Because of COVID, only one person could really go to a lot of these doctor's appointments. Obviously, Sam, they didn't want more than just her in the room. So I would just be staying at home, kind of being like, what's going on? What's happening? Give me updates,
Yeah, and that was a bit hard because it's like, I went for my transfer, and usually your partner is supposed to be there with you because it's supposed to be this really big, beautiful, magical moment. You're finally getting to do this transfer, and usually your spouse is there as like support, and it's supposed to be a wonderful thing between two parents creating a child together. And you get a bit deprived of that moment when your husband has to go wait in the car.
Yeah, I waited in the car. I was close by.
We were close by.
As close as I could be.
But I was video calling him in the middle of it, actually, until the point where the doctor had to come in the room and I had to turn my camera off. So we were on the video almost the whole time. Before that, I was texting friends because I actually had to keep drinking water to make my bladder more full because apparently I had not drank enough fluids before that, even though I had drank what they had told me to. So I just had to keep chugging water, which an old college party trick finally came in handy where I could put way too much fluid down real fast. But man, let me tell you, getting off the table, you are basically sprinting to the bathroom to go pee because they've been putting pressure on your abdomen, and it's like
sounds.
Yeah, it was fun.
I genuinely mean like women are fucking superheroes, man.
Yeah.
Like, we can't do this. Like, that's insane to me. That's so badass. And so, yeah, that's it's awesome. And so what happened next?
So obviously, the transfer worked. After the transfer, you have to wait a few weeks to go do a blood test, and you find out you're pregnant. Well, my hormone levels were super high when they called me, and we're like, "Yeah, you're like double the amount of a normal positive pregnancy test." Should have really been the red flag there. And then you go back. Then you go back for another check, another blood test a couple days later to confirm that it stayed positive, because there's always a possibility of losing them, especially in IVF.
Yeah.
Again, numbers were still ridiculously high.
And they were like, "You're super pregnant."
Yeah, I'm super pregnant at this point. With IVF, sometimes the numbers can be thrown off by some of the medication you're on. So I don't know if that was too big of a red flag for them at the point, because it could have just been from the medicine. Because you're taking pills, but you're also getting an injection of what's called progesterone in oil. And that needle is like this long, and it's like the thickness of the tip of a pen. So it's not a small, thin, fine needle. No, this little motherfucker is like a beast of a fucking needle. And Chris has to do it every single night into the top part of my butt and the lower part of my back. And like there's like an area on both sides where it's like about the size of a credit card, where he just has to keep stabbing me with a needle.
And I'll tell you, I used to have, and not that I had the hard job, obviously she did, but I used to have a major fear of needles, and so the first couple of times I was like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But then I got used to the actual
process of it.
Again, not that I had the hard job, but
so it's like collectively 13 weeks of injections into your back, and by like week 8 I was in a lot of pain in my back because it was just constantly I never had a chance
to... It got harder to give the shot, actually, because your body was saying, please stop doing this. And so I noticed that it created more, there was more resistance every time after that.
Yeah, there was more bruising. So I go in for my first ultrasound, and I'm super excited because obviously I'm pregnant, and by that point we had already been trying for children for about 4 years. You're going in, you're super excited, but you're also super nervous because there's always the chance that something's wrong or attached wrong or any of the other like hundreds of thousands of complications you can have. Ultrasound tech comes in to do it, and it's a vaginal ultrasound, which yippee, that's so fun.
Oh yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, it's so fun. Let me tell you.
I haven't been there.
And the doctor goes quiet. Of course, your first thought was it's obviously something's wrong.
Something's wrong.
And he's like, "You only had one embryo transferred, right?" And I was like, "Yes." "What do you mean?" "Well, there's 2." "What do you mean there's 2?" He turns the screen to look at me. "There's 2. Son of a bitch. There's 2. Because we had what are called diachromatic. What that means is are diachromatic diazygonic. Yay, said
Good
it.
job. Still don't know what it means. They're upstairs right now. I don't know what the fuck it means.
What it means is
they're like 8. You were diachromatic. Oh, really? That's interesting. I don't care. Take me to the baseball game.
Yeah. So what that means is I had 2 placenta and 2 amniotic sacs.
Yeah.
So it means that they had their own little bubble.
They had their own spaces.
Yeah, they had their own spaces.
They were not sharing the same
Which
space.
actually made it the least complicated of a multiple pregnancy that I could have. Because
they had their own little houses.
Yeah. So then they weren't sharing blood supply or air with each other.
Right.
So that was actually like a little like...
Slight relief
when we started doing more research. Because my first reaction when I found out it was twins was, oh my God, I'm going to lose this pregnancy.
Yep. Everything we worked for is gone.
Yeah. Because...
Or they'll be very premature.
Yeah. And all the complications started rolling through my head. So what should have been like a super exciting moment for me ended up being like every risk, everything that they tell you could go wrong. It just flashed through my head so fast. I was almost hyperventilating in the room. So then my doctor finally comes in and she's staring at the screen like, well, yeah, there's 2. And I was like,
whoops.
Yes. I was like,
I wish they said that. I wish they just, whoopsies.
Yeah.
I guess we gave you 2.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
What I tell people is that buy one, get one free is great with pizza. Not with kids.
It's great with kids too.
I'm kidding. I love them now. But in that moment, you're like, wait a second.
Yeah.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
You know, like, I'll be honest. We were like, wait a second. We did not plan for this.
No, not
this
at
is
all.
not in our plan book, you know, like we had to completely restructure everything, and everything that like you said, 4 years I tried to learn about things about parenting and read as much as I could and asked my friends who had kids, and I didn't ask anybody anything about twins.
No.
And so it was just, and obviously you are thinking of all of these risks, and so am I, but you know, it's your body, and so there's all these things that are going on that are very frightening.
Ironically enough, this is gonna sound funny, Chris's childhood best friend, literally almost like basically his brother, had just had twins himself, identical twins,
twin boys,
a few months previously.
Yep. And he lived on our same street,
100 house number off us.
He lived on our same fucking street right when COVID started, the worst time ever to have a child. He had twins with his wife. And so I was like, is there some shit in the water here that's like, you know, sprouting out these twin babies? Like, what's going on? Anyway, so he's actually been a great source of information that I can be like, hey, because he's a year ahead of us. And so it's like, hey, man, like, what's this? Is this normal? Oh, yeah, that's normal. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that was what was funny to me about my little giggle moment in my head. All this sappiness and crappiness. I'm like, what the fuck? What do you mean twins? Was, oh, this is really funny that some of our best friends literally just had identical twins.
It's fucking
4 months ago. It was like,
it's fucking hilarious. And so like I was able, I remember when my friend came to me here in this basement actually, and he was like, and obviously we knew that him and his wife were expecting a child, and he said, Chris, it's twins. And I remember being like, oh fuck, and I felt so sorry for him. I was like, oh no, that's a lot of work. I'll be there for you, man. And then I got the news too, and I when I called my friend, I was like, so yep, pregnancy is looking good. There's more information though that I need to share with you. And when I said it's twins, he lost his fucking mind. You know, because it was kind of funny because like she said, best friends since he's pretty much the only person I know from being a Jehovah's Witness that has kind of stayed with me because he left too. And the fact that we both have twins is just a strange coincidence, very strange coincidence.
And what's even funnier is I had just previously, before his wife had become pregnant, we had been having a conversation about children, and she said, oh, I would like it to be twins eventually, so I could just be one, I could be one and done. And I was like, oh my god, my head was like, oh, I would not want a twin pregnancy at that time. Yeah, joke's on me, right?
Now we're saying negative shit, but like, we're just being honest, okay? There's a lot of people out there who make parenting is beautiful and it's a rainbow. Look, it's challenging, it's hard, it's difficult. There's a lot of things that are, you know, in a moment sometimes you're like, oh my god, I am a fuck up, or I'm somehow messing this up, or I'm doing this wrong.
You have a lot of moments of like, I'm not doing this right, I'm fucking this up, oh my god, I'm just having a bad parent moment. My kid's just gonna sit in front of the TV for 20 minutes so I can go wash dishes, and they have clean bottles, and you try to put their laundry in the washing machine, and I'm like, well, what do I do with, I can't drag two of them around the house with me as easily as you can really one.
You have 2 arms.
And they're not small babies in the least bit.
What do you know? What a surprise.
So you have all these fears, and everything's so chaotic when you first find out you're pregnant, especially with multiples. And of course the doctors are like listing off all the extra complications that come with multiple pregnancies, and how some of the risks go up by a substantial amount. It's not just double. Some of them are doubled, some of them are tripled with multiple pregnancies. So you're just hearing all this like bad negative news, and you just want to like enjoy your pregnancy, and you're just
supposed to be exciting.
So it's supposed to be exciting, and you're just like devastated because you're like, wait, I was going into it with a singleton pregnancy already being a high risk, high complication pregnancy, and then I just basically not just double down, I triple down on the complication risks. So anyway, I go out to the car. My mom was there with me. Obviously being COVID, people couldn't really go into the room with us. So thankfully she was there. So I go out to the car, and I'm just sitting there basically hyperventilating, and I'm texting a few people trying to like rationalize what was going on and trying not to have a mental breakdown, because I'm thinking of literally all the worst case scenarios. I'm not at all thinking about the little blessings inside of me. I'm not at all thinking like how exciting this is. I'm having 2 babies. Oh my God, we've been trying for years. This is so great. We're having 2. None of that's crossing my mind. I'm just thinking, oh my God, I'm going to lose them. And it's now worse because it's 2 involved and not just 1. So I'm like, oh my God, I gotta lose both of them. Was of course what was running through my head at the time. So after like a 45-minute episode of like near like panic level, probably should have just taken me right over to the ER to have me like admitted to psycho ward. We finally leave and we go to Target, and I'm just like walking back to the baby section being like, okay, well, how do I tell Chris this news? Because nothing else in our pregnancy obviously had been a surprise because it was all very planned. And
all very planned.
So I'm like, okay, well, you know what, let's just have some fun with it. So I found a box, and I got like 2 of the same outfit, 2 of the same bottles, 2 of the same shoes, and I went and found a card saying congrats on your twins. And I put the ultrasound photo in it, and I brought it home to him. And he opened the box, and he was so confused, very confused. And he's like, wait, what, twins?
I was like, I paid for 1.
He wasn't like that. He was not like that.
No, I'm kidding. It was just very surprising, really.
Yeah, it was very surprising.
It's not just, it's like she said, you know, the cliche that you read on all the Hallmark cards is, this is a beautiful moment. Yeah. But like she said, all I was thinking about were, wow, the risks and the dangers of this just really kind of skyrocketed just now. And it made me afraid for her health, for their health, and for anything that could potentially happen along the way. Gratefully, you know, here we are. But still, it was in that moment, I wasn't excited. Like, I was scared. I was very scared for their health.
Basically, then after all the like, oh my God, twins wore off, the first part of my pregnancy was pretty okay. I didn't really have too much sickness. And then near the end of my first trimester, I started getting really sick. Really sick. I proceeded to lose about 12 pounds over the course of from week 10 of my pregnancy to week 16 of my pregnancy. So over the course of 6 weeks, I lost 12 pounds. I was really thin. And then eventually that tapered off a little bit, and I was finally able to eat a little bit, and I gained back a little bit of the weight fairly quickly, obviously. But fast forward to week 18, and I go in for one of my appointments at the maternal fetal medicine high risk specialist. The baby's looking great. This is looking great. This is so on and so forth. However, my cervix is shortening. My body's trying to open up to let the babies out, because by that point I had about the equate of a newborn in terms of weight inside of me. So they put me on medication for a few weeks, and then on week 21 I go into my appointment, and what had been slowly reversing itself, and I had been gaining back length to my cervix, and things had closed up, had completely gone out the window. And I was now actually like even farther open and funneling and going into labor. And okay, well, now we have to put the brakes on this somehow. So I ended up over at triage. Yeah, I had to have a 5-day hospital stay. They placed a cerclage to keep the babies in, to stop me from going into labor more. I was on medicines, and they basically, a cerclage is they stitched my cervix closed, which they had to put, they had to do a spinal tap to do this. And in the middle of my freaking out, like, hey, I'm about to lose these babies. So at 21 weeks pregnant, obviously they're not viable to come out yet. So then every week after that was basically like another week. We made it to another week. We made it to another week until we got to about what my doctors were saying. Well, this is a little bit more of a safer window. We've kind of got past that threshold where it's like you're looking at some serious, intense NICU time if they're born during that window. So then we finally get to a nicer window. Okay, and then every week after that was just like we got to another week. We got to there. We got there. And then we basically just kept checking the weeks off, checking every day off. Just being like, let's just get them to this point. Just a little farther. Don't have my body give out on me, because at that point I really started to deteriorate in terms of my health. I was anemic. I couldn't absorb enough nutrients, so I was super anemic, and wasn't getting enough calories because I couldn't stomach enough food, and just it was a whole host of complications that ended up with me only gaining about 23 pounds through my whole pregnancy with twins. Both babies were not in position to come out, so I ended up having to have a C-section. And now that was a whole headache in itself because I was originally scheduled for 38 weeks for my C-section. And obviously at 36 weeks, they removed my cerclage just for the off chance that I went into active labor. They didn't want me going into active labor with the cerclage in because that could be a whole nightmare of itself.
Ugh.
My body was trying to flip the babies into the correct position for me to birth them. Obviously, that wasn't going to happen because there wasn't enough room. And I was really sick with that. So now this is the week Chris is putting out his videos. So we had been planning originally for basically the day I went for my doctor's appointment at 37 weeks. We had planned for that evening to film this. Yeah. And that
didn't happen.
Yeah, it didn't happen. I went to my doctor's appointment and they're like, yeah, you need to go to the hospital now. I was like, oh.
Yeah, I woke up that day.
Yeah.
And our mother-in-law was like, it's happening. I was like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, because my mother, at that point, I was so sick with my pregnancy, I could not drive myself. I did not trust myself. My legs were going numb, and I was having a whole bunch of problems.
And I worked all that night editing, and so I slept in, I slept in pretty late.
Thankfully, let my doula be in the OR with me, which ended up being a blessing in disguise that he was not there because I threw up everywhere. I kid you not. It was 4:55. I started throwing up. 5 o'clock, middle of throwing up. Baby A, 5:01. Baby B, oh great, they're out. Thankfully, because the baby was clear, they were able to push the good stuff. And I don't remember anything until I'm waking up in recovery.
The good stuff.
The good stuff. Well, they can't give you the good stuff before the babies are out. So after they were out, they were able to finally calm my stomach down. And I stopped throwing up, and then I'm like, oh well, yeah.
I was in the parking garage.
Yeah.
Just kind of sitting in the car, waiting for the A-OK.
So obviously, babies are here. Babies are born. I'm not doing so great health-wise because I had all these complications before this. So I'm really ran down, really tired. And it was just coming home was a hot mess of oh my God, I'm just ready to crash.
And when I hear all of this, and this is not a joke, I truly mean, that's amazing that you did that. Yeah. And that is really just incredible. Yeah. And they're here and they're healthy and
big. They're very, very big.
Some big motherfuckers. They're
We've already jumped to 9 to 12 months.
I had to go to the chiropractor. Not that after that, me going to the chiropractor is nothing. But I had to go to the chiropractor because my entire left side from holding them went it just went. I had to pop me back into place.
And now that I'm kind of recovered enough, I'm I guess who's going to the spa and getting herself a massage and going to go to the chiropractor to get her bones realigned because pregnancy fucked me up.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's been our journey for the last few years, and it's been long, and I've been really sick through a good chunk of it, which is why you haven't seen me in many videos, is because like I said, it was September 2019. I got sick and it was game over, and then everything kind of just spun out of control from there. Yeah. And then eventually, like I said, we finally got to a period where everything was okay, and then I was pregnant with a very complicated pregnancy where I was sick the entire damn time.
Plus COVID.
It
was an interesting few years, but we made it through it. Yep. Just from my perspective, my ultimate goal is just to not give them a traumatic childhood. Sam and I both kind of had rough childhoods, and so I think the idea of making sure that they don't experience that they are able to do things they want to do, that they have freedom to make choices that maybe myself or Sam didn't have when we were younger in regards to lifestyle and things that they may or may not want to be or do or whatever. I just don't want them to, I want them to feel like they have freedom as people to do what they want to do and that they're happy. So we're just working towards that early on. And that's my goal, is just to raise children that are happier just because they are instinctually happy. Like they don't have to work to feel happy like sometimes you and I do. Like they just have a happy life. You know, like that's what
I don't want to
would
leave
like for them.
scars on them like
No.
you and I have,
No.
because we both came from abusive backgrounds, different types of abuse, but abusive backgrounds nonetheless. Obviously for very different reasons, and we just really don't want our children to have to experience what we did. That's our goal, is just to try to strive to be good parents to them, and let them be happy, healthy children who get to explore the world and not have any preconceived notions about anything.
Right.
I don't want to put them in a box, and I don't want them to feel like they have to meet expectations for anything. We just want them to be children.
Happy.
Yeah, happy.
Yes. And take them to haunted houses.
Lots of haunted houses.
Haunted houses.
I have thankfully discovered, Grayson is very particular about what types of shows he watches. He happens to enjoy the horror genre.
So
really
far,
funny.
I mean, like, obviously, you know, at 4 months, it's not like they've developed this, but you can tell, like, there are certain things that sort of divert their attention better than others.
Yes.
There are some things they see and it's kind of like, whatever. Yeah. But then there are other things where it's like, whoa, what the fuck? Yeah. And I put on Goosebumps sometimes, like the TV show Goosebumps, and he's just like, what the fuck is this? Like, what is, like, he's very, like, I'm like, yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Yes. Fox is much more agreeable with anything you put on, but Grayson's very entranced by like the horror genre.
Seems to be developing his taste early on.
Yes, he's very particular about everything. He's very particular about everything, and Fox gives no fucks about anything.
I'm just here. I'm Fox.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yep. Oh, I hear him crying. I'm going to dash out.
We're gonna. You have to say goodbye.
I'm saying goodbye. I have a baby. He's crying,
all right,
and they need me.
Go take care of him. All right. I love you.
Bye. I love you. We got to film it, right?
Yes, we did. I'll do the goodbyes.
Bye.
So yeah, that's parenting. Sometimes you just gotta run. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, guys, thank you so much for listening to this and watching. It's a long video. This was something that was very important for us to talk to you about. Again, I'm not going to be that type of parent that just shares, and it's, especially since I have like a following, it feels strange for me to sort of decide that my children don't have privacy. Do you know what I mean? Like, they should get old enough and then decide what they want to do with their lives and their face and their image and all that. So, like, you know, occasionally you might see a picture or something, but it's not going to be like other parents kind of overshare, I think. And so I'd like to keep them safe, and I hope that you guys are very respectful of my wife's story. That was something that is incredibly difficult for her to get off her chest. So again, thank you very much for watching and for listening, and we'll see you guys very soon with some more videos.